Hello, everyone. We hope you're having a fantastic day and a great time at WriteHive 2025, where we're writing the future we need for our sixth consecutive year. My name is Jesse Pullman. I'm a moderator for WriteHive, and welcome to our event called Writing and Plotting with ADHD. Today, we're going to talk about and provide some mechanisms for those of us with ADHD. If you see me looking down and away from the camera, it's because I'm scribbling notes to possibly incorporate into later questions. If you notice any visual inconsistencies, it's because we've got many amazing panelists, and if you know anything about amazing people, it's hard to get them all in one place at the same time, so we're doing some separate recording sessions. Last note before I welcome our guests to introduce themselves is that if you're in Discord chat, feel free to leave your questions, and our panelists will answer them as soon as possible. With that said, let me turn the microphone over to our first panelist.
Hi everyone, I am Ria Parisi. I am a YA fantasy author, and my debut novel of Wolves and Stags just came out a couple months ago with Inked and Gray Press, and I am very excited to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Harper Kinsley. My debut novel, Spikes, Dice, and Other Variables, is coming out next fall, also with Inked and Gray Press. It is a YA book, and I am also very excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Nicole. I am the author of All I Know So Far, which just came out. That was my YA debut. And I've also published adult fiction with various indie presses.
First question I have for us all is how does ADHD manifest for you and impact your day-to-day life?
So you can't really see it because I have this background, obviously. I am currently sitting in my craft room and I am surrounded by crafting mess. Uh, so the biggest way that ADHD seems to manifest for me is that I kind of function in organized chaos when it comes to like keeping the house together. And if I don't take my medicine and make sure I have a schedule and such, I find it very hard to do much more than just bed rot and make sure that I am, it's hard to stay on top of everything, including work, making sure I'm cooking meals for myself. If I'm not taking care of myself, I'll more than often just DoorDash because it's just far too easy nowadays to do that sort of thing. Uh, so really it's just I have most of the like executive function symptoms. And so it's making sure that I like stay on top of that, and that's how it manifests for me.
I think in writing specifically that it really, I think that I get a lot of the hyper focus. So if I'm working on a project, that's kind of all I can focus on. And sometimes that's sometimes I continue to do that one project, and sometimes I really have to pull myself out of it and work on edits for something else, or my day job, or feed the cat. So yeah, I think that that's the biggest way that it does impact me. And then I also have OCD, I have anxiety, so the ways that that those kind of mix in, um, that kind of, okay, well, if I pull myself out of this now, am I going to be able to focus again in that kind of OCD thought, or the anxiety of having to get something done right away, and maybe my ADHD that day isn't very good at hyperfixating, and so I think all of that is something that I've had to be aware of. I do take Prozac for anxiety, but otherwise, I think talk therapy has really helped me focus on those things. And I think that once I'm aware of, well, this is an ADHD hyperfixation, this is this for OCD, then I'm able to kind of work through that or pull myself out of it or put myself back into it, if that makes sense.
For me, I was considered combined type, so inattentive and hyperactive. A lot of my inattentive symptoms show up as lack of focus. I'm a very forgetful person. So I am one of the few people that like the people with ADHD that like my planner is actually my best friend and it actually does wonders for me. So that is another thing. I actually thrive a lot off of routine and planning a routine at the beginning of the week that's like routine for my routine. I need that, or else I literally, again, I can't function. Sort of similar to what Ria was saying. Like I definitely struggle a lot with that like executive dysfunction. Um, and for hyperactivity, I'm actually doing pretty okay right now. Not like fidgeting and stuff because I'm trying very hard because I know that like you'll see like my chair move around and I don't want that to be too distracting during the panel. But um, I'm also medicated and the medication helps a lot with that. But I'm a very talkative person. I'm a very sporadic person. I'm like constantly doing things either like with my hands or moving around. Yeah, so that's kind of how that manifests for me.
Well, for what it's worth, I've got one of these little fidget toys with me, and I find them to be nice little things to have available when you're in that particular mindset. So, surrounded by a crafting mess, but forgetful, lack of focus, and it's helped greatly, you've said, by scheduling. So, with that in mind, let's take that general life information and apply it to writing. In a broad sense, how does ADHD affect your ability to write and plot?
I think for me, it's really affected the way that I go about writing, in that because I know that I'm somebody who needs a schedule and I'm somebody who needs structure to be able to do anything, I am 150% a plotter. I am not a pantser. If I go to just write and I don't know what I'm doing, nothing's going to happen at all. Or I'll just write something completely different. So I am somebody who, in order to plot my book, I might come up with ideas sporadically, like here and there, but I need to have a full outline, and I mean full chapter to chapter outline written before I am going in and actually drafting, which I know not everyone is like that at all. And I learned that from how I was, managing my ADHD so I can do like my job and parent and everything and make sure I'm not missing things. So I applied that to my writing, and I find too that it's much easier for me to stick to deadlines if I have this outline written and I'm like, okay, these couple days I'm doing these chapters and I already know exactly what I'm doing in them. I just need to sit down and do it. But I always say this with like a caveat that outlines are living documents. So if as you're writing you realize that you need to go back and change something and it's better for the story, like give yourself the leeway to do that and you can fix it on a different draft.
I am quite literally the exact same way.
Yeah.
I have these super detailed outlines. I will constantly be going through and making edits to the outlines. Because I do think with the ADHD, I like will get those like, oh wait, but I should do this with this, which is great until I decide like three-quarters of the way through the book that I'm gonna change this one scene way back at the beginning. And I have that urge to go back and fix that. But I know that that is a trap. And I need to finish the manuscript first, or the draft, and then go back and make the edits and
Mhm.
stuff. Because it's just there's a lot of plotting, especially I think with ADHD. I think um you get all of these ideas, and like the ADHD mind is just constantly coming up with ideas. Like I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I have like an infinite amount of back burner projects, and I have other friends who are like, I don't know what I'm going to write next, and I'm like, oh, do you want to pick one of the 50 story ideas that is literally like I literally call it like a chef kitchen in my brain. Like I'm like, there's all these stoves, there's all these burners, and there's just a soup for every single book that's just simmering. Um, and so I find it really hard to like sit down and really focus on one thing at a time. So I do have a notebook that I tend to write a lot of my ideas in, just so that I know that they're at least on paper, and that helps me like get it out of my brain and somewhere stored for later. And um, have that, yeah, like I said, for later and stuff. So that's kind of like my big thoughts on that.
I think I kind of have a combination of Harper and Ria's answers. So I'm also a plotter, like Ria mentioned, and I also have a lot of notebooks like Harper. And so I'll kind of sketch out that initial plotting, jot down kind of like any scenes that are immediately in my head that I really just want to get down on paper initially. And those obviously are also subject to change. And sometimes the narrative will take me by surprise or the characters will take me different places. But I definitely work with that kind of initial jumping off point, and I think that that's been very helpful for me.
So we've already given a few of these, but the next question we have is, do you have any tips on how to stay focused while writing? So I guess this is more this is less big picture, coming up with ideas, coming up with outlines, and more, all right, you're sitting at the computer, you've got this thing in front of you. Um, how do you make sure that you're not flipping over to Blue Sky or going on Discord or deciding, oh, you know what, I think I'll play a game for a little while and then getting lost in that for 2 hours? Because God knows I could use help with that one.
For me, I have two things I would say. Number one is more generalized that I've seen a lot of people do, and that's writing sprints. So give yourself like small periods of time when you're not going to touch anything else. You're just writing, take a break, do something else, walk away from it, come back, do that. And I recently joined a Discord actually that is like a constant just authors doing writing sprints. So you can join in whenever you want, stop whenever you want. And that's really helpful because you're watching like a community do it and you're logging how many words you got. So it feels like not like a competition, but like you're cheering each other on sort of thing. So that's like my generalized advice. Something that's more specific to me and maybe would help other people is I'm very, very particular about the music that I pick when I'm writing. And I have found that video game soundtracks help me focus. I'm not alone. They help me
Yep, me
focus
too.
so
Me too.
well because they're composed specifically for people to do things while they're listening to them because you're supposed to be playing a game and focusing on something else while listening to the music at the same time. So they're not supposed to like pull you out of whatever space that you're in. So I'll find like a video game that I feel like fits the vibes of what I'm working on. Like for this book, it was Hollow Knight and The Witcher 3. And and I found like lo-fi like soundtrack put togethers on YouTube, and that's what I would listen to when I would write. It would help keep me like focused in the moment. Yeah, I highly recommend it. I'm glad I'm not alone with that.
No, I'm like chomping at the bit here because I'm like, why are we the exact same type of writer? Like, for me, for over here, Spike States and Other Variables, it was the Persona soundtrack, because this is very like high school setting, and so I was like, oh, of course I'm going to be listening to for TLDR, Persona is a JRPG that takes place in a high school setting. And so that music was just perfect for me to listen to, also lo-fi versions. And so I am a big fan of the music. I love having like a soundtrack for my book. So like when I finally get to reading of Wolves and Stags, because I do really want to read it, I will have to
Thank you.
put Hollow Knight music on now while I like read it because that'll like vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar to the sprints, I am a huge advocate for Pomodoro method, which is kind of the sprint idea, but taking it to just like a little bit, just a level up. I actually have a couple different productivity apps on my computer. Um, I have this very cool gamified productivity app called Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. It's on Steam and it's really cute because you like earn rewards and you get to decorate your room and stuff. And there's like little characters, there's like little like spirit like pets that hang out with you. But it's really great because the Pomodoro method in itself is this idea of setting time for specific work time and then short breaks and then long breaks. And what I really like about that is it gives me a specific timer for each of those things. So I'll set the I'll do a 20-minute work timer. I'll write for 20 minutes and then I get a 5-minute break timer. And then I'll crochet for like 5 minutes or something like that. And then when I get to like that longer one, that 10-minute break, then I'll get up, I'll go to the bathroom, I'll do stretches. Also, another thing that's nice about the Pomodoro method is it does, you get, depending on how long you set your timers for, you get these reminders to like get up and move and do things. And I actually use that personally for me as reminders to drink water because silly things like that, like I forget to drink water a lot. And so like that's like a nice like okay, like because we all know that water is essential to our functioning. And I get lightly made fun of by some of my friends because I'm the type of person that like I wake up and I'm like, "Oh, good morning. Have you had water yet today? Like when was the last time you drank water? Please drink water now. I'm taking a sip of my water. When was the last time?" In fact, when was the last time y'all drank water?
I
I
have
have
tea.
I
So,
have like a
and my
soda. That's
Okay,
worse.
well,
and my tea bottle
um,
is transparent with the green screen because it's green.
that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, so like just because a lot of people I know with ADHD have issues as well with like the body cues and stuff, hunger cues, bathroom cues. And so just having that minute to like get up and like check in with your body and see where you're at. Like, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Like, do I need to stretch? Have I been shrimping while I like type like this, like a little gremlin, like maybe we
Hmm.
do need to do a little stretch. So
I also make soundtracks, or I guess I don't really think of them as soundtracks, but I do make playlists for my projects and I'll listen to those. I don't do writing sprints because I feel like for me and for my neurodivergence, I really need to be in something and not take breaks. So if I'm, doing a writing sprint and I'm writing for 20 minutes and then it's okay, yeah, like let's get up, take a snack. I'm like, no, I just want to finish this part. And then if we get up, then I don't want to come back to it. And it's a whole thing. So for me, I think that it's more helpful to sit down and have just a long period of time where I can write. And or if I'm in a period where I'm maybe in a writing slump or I'm not able to do that, I'll read back the last couple of things that I did right for whatever project that I'm working on, and that will kind of bring me back into it.
I know that my computer at least, and a lot of phones now have um, like focus timers. So this kind of goes more with the distraction stuff. And I love them because I do not have the self-control not to check a notification. And so I love being able to turn on a focus mode because what it'll do is it'll turn off any apps and I have it so that like I can only get phone calls and text messages because most people will contact me through like Discord. And so I know that if I get a text message, it's probably more urgent. Um, and so that is super nice because I don't get notifications. I can't go on like anything other than like Scrivener or like Spotify. And so that is really great because that literally keeps me from being able to do those other things. Like you said, like playing a game,
Yeah.
anything else, watching YouTube, whatever.
It's interesting you mentioned sprints because on Saturdays, Right Hive has been hosting for years now sprints at 2 p.m. Eastern on our year-round Discord. We have one of those. So if you're a sprint person, come check them out sometime if you're free. Um, I host them typically every other week. Then we have Julie who hosts them every other week, and Phineas steps in sometimes to help out with that. So the next question is, how do you avoid distraction when writing? And we already sort of gave a lot of tips that will nullify that. But just on the topic of distraction, uh, maybe you can give some sort of insight into the nature of it as well, like how it gets to you and all of that.
I think for me personally, a lot of my distraction comes from I have a lot of social media distraction personally. And it's hard because part of me wants to just be like, well, then I'll just unplug from social media and I won't like look at it, but then I have to for marketing and for like finding followers for author work and stuff. So it's like I can't fully get rid of it, but then I also have to tell myself like stop checking it. And it's kind of like a like a good problem to have, but if you have a video that does well and then you get like so many notifications, I have found myself like just get lost in them and feel like I have to keep reading every single comment. And I've had to teach myself that you don't have to reply to every single comment. It's okay. You can not read some of them, especially if you want to argue with them. That's been an issue. I've had a few Star Wars and Alien videos go well, and then people want to argue with me in the comments, but that's another story. But yeah, I think social media is like the biggest, that's how it manifests for me a lot. And then also, I'm somebody who just like will just mindlessly play like AFK Journey on my phone. Like, so I have to like tell myself that we're not going to be doing video games on the phone right now and listening to two hot takes. We are going to actually do some work today.
I definitely agree with what Ria was saying about social media because for me, sometimes I'll just shut off the Wi-Fi. Like I'll just turn off the Wi-Fi and I work mostly in Pages on my Mac, so I don't need my Wi-Fi for that. And or we'll write scenes in notebooks. And so I don't write my whole project freehand because I don't have time for that. And also I have arthritis, I can't do that. But it is helpful, I think, when I'm getting myself in that initial like, okay, like let's dive into this phase. It helps kind of cut out the distractions of, oh, now let's make a Pinterest board, which I do. It's still necessary to the process, but it cuts out that distraction. And I can still put music on my phone. So yeah, that's what I do.
For me, it's a little bit of like FOMO. I think that's like a like I say I have a lot of things that I want to do. Is like I'm sure everybody with ADHD can relate, um I literally have so many hobbies and I have so many things that I do, right? Like, I'm a reader, I'm a writer, I'm a video gamer, I am a crafter, I crochet, I do scrapbooking, I like Lego, and there's so many things to do. And so I think kind of just like making sure like I'm a big fan too of like the writing rituals. So like whenever I write, I have like my blue light glasses on, and then like I have like big headphones that I use specifically for when I'm writing. I write like a candle. I always sit like at the same spot whenever I do that. And that kind of is like another sort of, I guess, tip as well, but like it's a signal to my brain of like, okay, this is writing time.
Yeah.
Because like and like sometimes I'll see like my friends will jump into like a voice chat or like Discord and I'm like, but I want to hang out with them. But I'm like, no, because if I even try, if I try to body double with them, it's just gonna end up with us talking. And I'm like, so I have to like resist that urge. Um, and I think, with being having ADHD, we're also very social creatures. So it's like we just want to talk. You like and be around people. But sometimes to get work done, we have to not talk to people.
Yeah.
And that is rude, I think, honestly.
Piggybacking off your writing ritual thing, I completely agree. I'm somebody who I have to get ready in the morning or I don't want to work. Like if I am just in my PJs, I like I'm somebody who just wears like fancy dresses like every day just for the fun of it. And like if I dress up and I do my makeup and maybe go to the Barnes and Noble cafe because I've forced myself to get out of the house, so now I have to write. Um, those are rituals that I'll do just to tell myself that like, hey, we are up today and we're not just gonna be distracted and just like have fun or like what my brain is perceiving as fun at that moment. Yeah.
Listen, hey, I've got my little suit on, my broadcasting suit. I've got my Japanese cherry blossom room spray. I've got my lights going and doing what they need to do. Talk about rituals, like yeah, I'm learning a lot, and it's informing me a lot on some things I didn't quite know, and now it's interesting. Okay, so our next question. Now we're going to get into some things that maybe people think they know, but aren't quite right about, or at least based on certain people's lived experiences aren't quite right about. What are the misconceptions about ADHD and ADHD authors? In other words, what do you think you know about people that maybe you don't, and what might be unique to you that defies the typical conception thereof? I hope that question made sense. I don't know if it did.
I was just at a conference this past June, LavenderCon in DC, and there was actually someone that I was talking to about how they'd always wanted to write something but had been unable to because of ADHD. And I think that a big misconception people have is that when you have ADHD, you can't sit down and do something creative, which is kind of the antithesis of what ADHD is, because I just know so many people with that specific brand of neurodivergence who are so into different creative fields. And I feel like I don't want to say it's a superpower, because that's some different ableist nonsense that, it's still a disorder. But I do think that for me, that ADHD means that I get so focused and so into a project, and that's been able to help me with my own writing. And then I think also that ADHD stereotypically looks a certain way, and it looks like not being able to sit down, and it looks like running around, and it looks like not being able to do certain things. And as someone who has different neurodivergences that co-mix, and that some of them cover each other up, and some of them do different things together. This is a very ADHD explanation, in fact. But I think that acknowledging what ADHD looks like for you is helpful, just in the general sense of being able to sit down and do creative things in a way that works for your brain, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of people, when they think ADHD, only think the hyperactive and the like the chaotic sort of part of ADHD, which I don't have as much. I'm more just the inattentive. And so I feel like when I tell people that I have ADHD, they imagine my writing to be more pantsing and to be more on like the chaotic side, and don't realize that everything has to be so structured, at least for me personally. Um, so I feel like that's the biggest misconception I fall into a lot. And then unfortunately, you always like find the people who like, if you tell them anything about ADHD medication at all, they like have some like horrible misconception about like Adderall or something, and don't seem to understand that like, if I take Adderall, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to now clean my entire house in a single afternoon like maybe somebody without ADHD could. It just means that like my brain isn't as loud. Like I the best way I can like describe it, and I've said to like my partner before, that like before I was medicated, I would read books and I would constantly be thinking of different things. And then I was medicated and I was reading and I was like, the voices stopped. Like I stopped thinking about other things. Like my brain just was quiet and I was able to focus. Whereas, like, somebody who doesn't need Adderall, maybe they would be very hyperactive and, like, get different side effects. But I feel like there's just a real misconception about medication in general, and not everyone with ADHD does need medication. Some people are able to handle it with therapy. So really not abdicating any route, go whatever's good for you. But there's just so much to where, like, people really push that, like, you need to get off medication, and that's not really feasible for everybody.
Definitely agree with the medication thing. I think a lot of people, I think there's like this, this very large misconception of like, if you get on medication, you'll never be the same person. And I'm like, no, see, because with me having hyperactive, like, because I'm on medication, I can sit here and like not be all over. I think For me, I also have a lot of like emotional dysregulation. That is a huge topic of spikes based on other variables. Um, I guess not to like do too much like about my book and stuff, but I do want to mention that like that's largely what my book is about the undiagnosed ADHD experience. And it is a lot about my own experiences in high school, specifically with emotional dysregulation. I think a lot of people assume that people with ADHD are just these very like bubbly, happy people, and we just do things and we're down for whatever, we'll do whatever and hang out and spontaneous and blah blah blah. But like a lot of ADHD for me is anxiety and a lot of anger for me. That was a thing that um, I didn't understand until I was diagnosed with ADHD is I've had a lot of issues with irritation and frustration and just anger. And I was always really concerned about it and I never really had an answer and I didn't understand why I was like this. And um, I remember talking to my therapist about it and being like, I just don't understand where this comes from. And she's like, it's from your ADHD. And I went, what? What what do you mean? She's like, because your brain doesn't know how to properly confront that anger and those feelings and how to like rationalize it in your head. And that was just such a big eye-opening moment for me. It's if you're the type of person with ADHD and you don't feel like you're happy all the time, you're not the only person like that, I promise you. There's a lot of anxiety there, and that's I think um that's been a huge thing for me learning how to live with is that anxiety.
That's a lot of actually useful information, and it speaks to some of my own experience. So that's definitely something that's got me thinking. All right. So we've touched on some of our next question indirectly in the sense that we've talked about the question is what resources could help an ADHD author? And we've talked about it from the outside, as in like, oh, Pomodoro method, apps, this, that. But when we ask for resources, is it possible that we have specific ones on hand or not? If we don't, but we can get them later, we can put them into chat. That's fine. Um, what are resources that could help? And this could be other things that aren't just like a specific app or a specific resource. It could be more general, but answer the question as you see fit.
I use something called the Heroes Journal. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. I saw it just like it showed up as like an Instagram advertisement for me, and I was like, okay, like yeah, I mean, might as well give it a try. It is so much fun for somebody who is a writer, especially if you like writing fantasy or sci-fi. And basically, you write down a goal, and it changes that goal into like a quest and it tells a story like as you go along and each day you give yourself three things that you need to do to be able to accomplish said quest. And I also got something called their side quest deck, and it's like a deck of cards that you just pull one card a day and it gives you a side quest. It'll be like try a different food that you've never tried before or do a project that you've been putting off, and it like just it helps gamify it and make it more fun to like go through your life. And like one of them was like it was like final boss clean your kitchen, and I was like okay. So it makes it more fun. So that's a fun specific resource, I would say. It's the Heroes Journal. And I know we mentioned Scrivener before. I think Scrivener is a great writing platform. You can try it for free before you buy it. It's $50 and it's just $50 flat, not per year. So it's not it's an expense, but it's not too expensive. And I think it's great because it really helps you organize when you're writing because it's like chapter by chapter, and then you can have like a section for timelines and a section for character bios, and then at the end it'll compile it into whatever manuscript document you want it to be when you're going to like send it off to somebody. So those are two that I really use, and as I said, like the lo-fi on YouTube in general. Little pro tip, if you want to add ambiance to so like music that doesn't have a lo-fi, look up like if you start playing like Regency music on one window and then open another window and put like garden sounds, you can make your own lo-fi that doesn't exist out there. I have done that.
We're the same person.
Yeah.
That's yeah, I'm a big fan of noise canceling headphones. I love my loops. I live off those. Other resources, for me, I need accountability buddies. That is a thing that my community, I think community is one of the biggest resources that every writer needs, but I think especially writers with ADHD. Just people to talk about things with, especially like when you're in a space where you're submitting things for publishing. The rejection sensitivity dysphoria
Mhm.
is a real thing. And in case people do not know what that is, that's when you basically take everything personally. Even if it was not meant personally, it's that person didn't wave at me when they were crossing the street. They must hate me, and I probably offended them very deeply without knowing it. Um, it's it can be very hard. And when you get those rejections, because everybody gets rejections, but you tend to feel like you're the only person in the world, or because this one story didn't fit this one agent or publisher or contest or anthology. I should never ever write again, which is not true. You should write. You should write your stories, tell those stories. And having people to share things with can seriously make all the difference. I'm very lucky in that I have a super, super supportive partner who is just absolutely wonderful. We actually have like writing brainstorming dates, and we'll go out to dinner and he'll be like, okay, tell me about your work in progress. What are we talking about? Like, and he'll just let me void talk, and he'll listen and he'll give thoughts. And I usually gently turn down every single one of them. But every now and then I'm like, wait, this is a good idea. That's a really good idea. And there have been some really great things that have come out of that. And so just finding people to share your work with, people to say, hey, have you finished that short story that you meant to finish? Or why haven't you, turned this thing in? Hey, I noticed that it's almost the end of the month. How are your chapters going? And you go, I know I asked you to tell me to do things, but leave me alone, please. But then you do it anyway, and it's great. So just again, community, accountability buddies, anybody who can be a cheerleader, cheer you on, find who those people are, and hold on to them like they're the most important thing in your life, because they really are.
Music definitely is helpful for me, just because it kind of gets that background noise kind of gets rid of that part of my brain that's like, okay, well, we need to be doing something, and we need to be, there's a lot of stuff going on. But also what Harper said about community, I think that having people who hold you accountable, people whose work you read and who will read your work, and you can get excited about each other's projects, I think that gets me excited then to go on and continue writing. So yeah, I think that community, especially a community of fellow neurodivergent authors, whatever that looks like, is important.
I like the lo-fi music as well. For what it's worth, when I'm doing a meeting of some kind, if it's not being recorded, I'll listen to like medieval lo-fi. Fantasy writers, medieval lo-fi is pretty
Yeah,
great.
it's
I
great.
haven't found a particularly like sci-fi one, but then again, for like techno stuff, like electronica has a lot of music with no lyrics that takes you on a certain type of ride. So, Neurowolf is one of my favorites.
Blue
Go
Turtle
on.
on YouTube is also really great for
Blue Turtle.
Blue Turtle. They have
Mhm.
fabulous writing soundtracks specifically for fantasy stuff.
You
It wouldn't
got
be an
you.
ADHD panel if somebody didn't interrupt. And
Yeah, it's cool. It's listen, we're We're having a day, all right? The fact that we're getting anything done right now with the way I started this off is just like, yo,
I think if there was one takeaway I want folks to take with them, it would be that you don't necessarily have to be diagnosed with ADHD or anything to use the tools that work for that thing, if that makes sense. Like for I I'm trying to phrase this as, as kindly as possible. We're in a time where it's very scary to be neurodivergent and where it's very scary to have specifically a diagnosis of neurodivergence. And I think that there are going to be a lot of people that might think that they have ADHD or something else that aren't necessarily going to get a diagnosis right now. But that doesn't mean you can't use the tools, and that doesn't mean you can't uh, identify that way. I'm self-diagnosed ADHD, and the way that I've gotten a lot of official medical diagnoses is self-diagnosing first. And I think that for someone who is hearing about music or stimming or headphones or community or whatever it is, I think you should be able to use those tools regardless of what your medical charts say.
For me, it's realizing that you're not the only one who's experiencing this kind of stuff. I mean, Harper and I have like connected, been like, yo, we're the same person. This is crazy. But realizing that you're not the only one who might be having these struggles, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to find resources. You don't have to just like force yourself through and do it like everyone else does it. If you are not a plotter and you're listening to what we're saying and you're like, this doesn't make sense for me. I have ADHD, but it's not making any sense for me, and I just need to like pants it, then that's the way you got to do it. And just looking at the resources and picking what works for you, and not feeling bad if something doesn't work for you. Like, oh, it worked for somebody else, why doesn't it work for me? That's okay. Like, everyone's so different. And just experiment with different things. Experiment writing at different times. Like, some people are so much better in the morning, some people are better at night after, like, they've done everything else for the day, and then you can just curl up with a lap desk in bed and write. Like, I've done that before too. Just find what works for you, and don't feel like you have to compare yourself to other people, but then also realize that there's a community that you can reach out to if you do need that help.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything. I was going to say, knowing that you have to know yourself and figure out what works for you. Again, like
Yeah.
for us, it's rituals and Pomodoro and sprinting, and for some people, it's, so for like, I know like one thing that does specifically work for me is I go based off of word counts per day. Some people don't do
Mhm.
word counts. Some people do
Mhm.
chapters written. Um, I'm a big person that I have to set goals in the morning, kind of like with the hero's journal. Like I pick 3 things that I have to get done during the day. Um, some people like this is where Ria and I differ. Some people like Ria are really great with social media and are so good with that. And then there are people that are like me and I'm like, "Oh, I haven't posted anything in the past like 3 weeks. I should probably post something." But that doesn't make you any more or less of a writer than the next person. It's all about learning who you are as a writer and as a person with ADHD, and figuring out what is best for you. And on top of that, building off that, it takes a long time. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I did not figure out all of this overnight. This took, I want to say, 7 years at this point to figure out what works for me. I started writing my first novel back in 2018. That was a hot mess that will never see the light of day.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at it, but
No,
No,
no.
no, no,
I
no, you
know
should laugh.
I know that feeling. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
You should laugh. We have to laugh. And like it was building those skills over time and going, okay, this does work. This doesn't work. Like, I am actually a huge planner person. Planners don't work for a lot of people with ADHD. But
Mhm.
you know, it's worth a try. Everything is worth a try. And if it doesn't work, don't be disheartened. Just move on to the next thing and um, just keep going. The one thing that you should not do is you should not give up. Because there are stories inside of you, and those stories need to be told, whether it's for you, whether it's for other people. But if you've got a story in you, you owe it to yourself to try and keep going.
With that said, we've about reached the end of the panel. If everyone would like to say one more time where they can be found, what they do, what they make, all of that good stuff, that would be excellent so that people in chat can find them if they've been like, oh, this person really speaks to me.
Yeah, sure. Again, I'm Ria Parisi. I'm a YA fantasy author. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Ria the Wolf Writes. And my debut novel, Wolves and Stags, is a YA fantasy book with a plus-size heroine that just came out this year with Inked in Gray Press.
And I am Harper Kinsley. I am most somewhat active on Instagram. I was like, I'm active on Instagram, somewhat, kind of. Yeah, Spikes Dice and other variables.
Oh yeah, I went the wrong way.
So good.
It's bad.
Is coming out next year. It is a YA novel, YA contemporary novel, again about a volleyball player with ADHD. I'm glad to be here.
So you can find my website at nicolezelniker.com, and then I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads at Nicole Zelniker. And on TikTok, I'm at Nicole Writes Books. And then in addition to that, I also, I'm no longer the editor-in-chief, but I did start a literary magazine about 2 years ago called Knee Brace Press. And you should definitely follow them and continue on with what they're doing, even though I'm not the editor-in-chief anymore. I'm very much going to be cheering them on and maybe submitting something if they like me, if they want to have me back. So.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for our panel. Thank you all so much for joining us at Writing and Plotting with ADHD. We hope you'll continue the discussion in the Discord chat, and remember to ask your questions so you can receive an answer in the near future. Until then, please don't forget to check out our many panelists at their other events at WriteHive 2025, and if you like someone in particular's vibe, please check out their website or social media for more about them. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of WriteHive 2025. Peace.